Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA show preview edition.
Mm,
My name's Noah Baker. I'm coming to you from the great state of Ohio,
mm.
Perrysburg, Ohio. The man on my right, that's Dommy Bunkers. Hey, Dom, how you doing, buddy?
Ooh. Dommy Bunkers is a mythical figure that only makes appearances once every 16 golf trips. I think that's the math I've determined with that one, but I'm doing well. A little early for us. We're recording this on a Tuesday matinee, releasing it on a Thursday just to work around our schedules. It's a busy week for the Joes, but that don't mean we're cutting nothing short. Chipotle aside, we've got UFC in two count it, Bellator cards in Hawaii. I think we're going to have a fun episode, Noah. Do you agree?
Completely. It's a big weekend for combat sports. You have these three MMA cards that we'll be talking about. And then if you're a boxing fan, got to get excited about Tank Davis, Ryan
Oh,
Garcia
yeah.
this weekend. And there is another boxing card I'll be checking out on the zone. I forget how to say it, guys. I think it's shot. It's something like Shavkat Radzimov or something like that.
Oh,
Like
a
it's
distant
got a
cousin.
name that's yeah. So it's one of those type of
Yeah.
fighters, right? So I'll be watching a lot of that, and honestly, just sports in general. Dom, you got NBA playoffs, NHL
Mm,
playoffs, baseball's
mm.
in full swing. I was
Whew.
filling out my schedule. I keep a on my notes app. I keep like a daily schedule of what's going to be on and what channel it'll be on. Today, I'm finally gonna, since I don't have cable anymore because my old apartment cable was part of my rent. I'm gonna finally make the YouTube TV purchase with their recent
Oh.
announcement with NFL Sunday Ticket slash
Mm.
Red Zone. I think you can get with it too. Um, Very excited about that. So I'll be watching just sports all week. But what else would I be doing?
Mm.
But you guys don't care about that. You're here for the guys punching each other in the face.
Yeah.
And it starts, Dominic, with UFC Vegas. Just kidding. Insert
Oh.
number here.
I thought he was going to do it.
I thought about it and I said, nope, got to keep the bit going. In your main event, Dominic, a pretty big fight, no
Literally.
pun intended, literally and figuratively, I guess. In your heavyweight division, the number 3 ranked Sergei Pavlovich comes in at a plus 145. This is my first time seeing betting odds for these fights, Dom, so I'm already a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
He's going
Yeah.
up against the man one spot behind him, number 4, Curtis Reza Blades at minus 170. The story here, Dominic, in my opinion, you got Pavlovich, who's been surging as of late. He's won 5 straight, dating back to his UFC debut all the way back in 2018, where he took on Alistair Overeem in a main event on a fight night in his first UFC bout.
Wow.
Overeem takes him down, pummels him with the ground and pound in one round, gets him out of there quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Curtis Blades, who's been around much longer than Pavlovich. I think his UFC tenure dates back to probably 2015 or so, 2014. He debuted against Francis Ngannou,
Gee.
who
Hey.
ended up being a kryptonite for him for a while. He has 3 losses in the UFC, and they are to 2 of the hardest punchers you will ever see in the heavyweight division in Ngannou
Mm.
and Derek Lewis. But Curtis Blades on a bit of a run himself. We, of course, saw him in the main event at UFC Columbus and getting a big win there, coming out to the Mortal Kombat theme.
Mm-hmm.
Great vibes. And then he followed that up in a main event in the second London card of last year against Tom Aspinall. I know the fight only went like 15 seconds,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Aspinall went down with a pretty serious knee injury. But regardless, Blades does come in here on a winning streak. But Dominic, I'm a little surprised by the odds, not because of any sort of lack of respect I have for Curtis Blades. I think,
Mm-hmm.
dare I say, hot take alert coming. Curtis Blades might be the best heavyweight of all time to never fight for a UFC title.
Ooh. I like that. I
I'd have
like
to
where you're
think
going.
about it a little bit more. Like when I was thinking about it earlier, it depends on if you count interim titles because
Mm,
you got Minotauro Nogueira in there as
mm,
well.
mm.
But for argument's sake, I would say Curtis Blaydes might be the best to ever do it at heavyweight without competing for a title. That's been the one thing that's missed him, Dom. He's gotten so close, and then, of course, he runs into Ngannou, or then the Derek Lewis fight happens where he looks great early, gets caught with a nasty uppercut in round 2. And that's been kind of his kryptonite through his career, really. It's not just Ngannou, Dom. It's when the hardest punchers land flush on him. In a heavyweight division where one punch more than any other division can change the course of an entire fight, can end a fight quickly, he tends to not have one of the better chins, at least that we've seen in this heavyweight division. Meanwhile, Sergei Pavlovich is kind of taking that mantle with Derek Lewis starting to fall towards the backside of the top 15. And Ngannou, of course, no longer in the UFC. There's an argument that could probably be made that Pavlovich might be the most dangerous puncher in this heavyweight division. And he's proven it back-to-back under 1 round or under 1 minute knockouts, including Tai Tuivasa and wasn't it Derek Lewis? Yes, it was.
Yes.
And I mean, before that, Shamil Abdurrahimov, like he's really just been on this tear of, and even through his whole MMA career, Dom, he's got 14 knockouts. I'm pretty sure at least 13 of them are in the first round, maybe all 14.
He wastes no time.
So, and that's been the story for him. But you go back to that only loss of his entire career, and you saw the path to do it.
Yeah.
Overeem, obviously a historically great kickboxer, able to take him down, dominate with ground and pound, get him out of there quickly. And even though he's been on a tear since, hasn't shown any weaknesses like that since, I would argue it's been untested ever since that fight back in 2018.
Yes.
So, to start our discussion here, Dominic, who do you trust more between these two to have improved the most in their perceived deficiency?
Oh, man. I think I have to lean Pavlovich. I don't know, man. This dude just seems like a wrecking ball right now. And, you know, another thing that leads me that direction is that Curtis has shown a willingness to stand lately. Yeah. He's trusted his stand-up. He's gotten a couple knockouts. He's looked sharp. But is that going to be that confidence that he's having? Is he going to bring that in here against Pavlovich, a dude that don't waste no time, throws bombs, and he is absolutely dangerous? So with all those factors, I do lean Pavlovich in terms of the deficiencies. Who's going to be better at those deficiencies? I think Sergei. But I want to see Curtis try and wrestle solely for the fact of, has Pavlovich done that? Can he stay on the feet? Can he get on top of Curtis even? Like you said, since that first fight in 2018, we've not even seen him have to be tested at all with grappling, with wrestling. Curtis is the man to do it if he doesn't get overzealous and too confident in the hands. No, and sometimes when people start getting those knockouts, they trust those hands and don't fall back on what's got them to the top. I don't think Curtis will necessarily do it, but if I have to lean one way, I go Pavlovich for that question.
Yeah, I think I'm going to slightly lean Pavlovich, and a lot of it's because the fight starts on the feet, right?
Yep.
Like it's just an inevitability that is Blaydes is going to have to take him to the ground. So therefore, I put slightly more trust in Pavlovich. Curtis Blaydes is the best wrestler at heavyweight, though.
Yes.
Maybe another hot take, one of the best wrestlers in UFC heavyweight history.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
And that's a historically, you go way back and you got a lot of top-notch guys in there. And I could totally see this, Dom, turning into one of those classic Curtis Blaydes performances where he really draws the fight out. He dominates with takedowns and top control. But he's also capable of landing some nasty ground and pound. Let's not forget what he did to Alistair Overeem, a fight that was pushed to the prelims for CM Punk and Mike Jackson in Chicago. But that was the best performance that might maybe ever seen from Curtis Blaydes, not just in dominance, but in actually landing the damage to go along with it, making it an exciting finish. For Curtis Blaydes, I feel like he's a bit stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. Yes, he's ranked number 4. This fight has sort of been built up to where I think a lot of people think the winner of this fight should be in line to either take on the winner of a potential John Jones-Stipe fight, or if both those guys were to retire afterwards, it may open him up for just a vacant title.
Yeah.
However, for Curtis Blaydes, he's had a rocky relationship with the UFC, with MMA fans, and it's not done him any favors probably in terms of the UFC really trying to push him into a title position. Not all of his fights have been the most appealing. They've not been the most exciting. And if he were to win this fight, Dominic, you have to think he's going to have to do a little bit of that, slow the fight down, drag it out, try to force Pavlovich into later rounds to do so. But yet he might feel this pressure also that if he really wants to put a stamp and say, no, I am the next title challenger, there might be some pressure to go in there and get that kind of highlight reel knockout or ground and pound finish that has not been typical of him in his UFC career. And that could lead him very vulnerable against a power puncher like Pavlovich, because Curtis Blaydes looks good on the feet, truthfully.
Yeah.
When he's striking offensively, he's fast. He's got good hands. He put out Chris Daukaus in Columbus. It was a great showing. And he said, I've always been known as the wrestler. I want to show people I'm much more well-rounded than that. Well, that's great. But Dominic, he's hittable too. And that's, I mean, that's not just him. That's the heavyweight division. It's not, a lot of guys are being hit pretty cleanly in this division. That's why, the finish rate is the way it is. So it does leave me concerned for Curtis Blaydes in this fight, but I could totally see this turning into a fight that does go into the championship rounds of rounds 4 and 5, and it's Curtis Blaydes kind of dominating his way to a victory. But I also could see the complete opposite, where it's a real quick Pavlovich knockout. I do kind of have a hard time seeing either guy win the fight the other direction. So if you're looking at betting, if you're looking at over-unders on rounds, or picking a winner by a certain finish, like a Pavlovich by decision or a Blaydes by KO, TKO. I mean, the Blaydes one could probably happen with ground and pound, but Pavlovich like winning a decision, I don't really see that happening here, if I'm being honest. So do you kind of agree with that? Like, it's pretty clear which way a guy's going to have to win this fight and the method they'll do it?
Yeah, when you put it that way, in terms of methods to win, you do lean Curtis, right? We know he can get it done over the distance, and we know that he does have hands. If Sergei comes in, kind of like how he did against Derek Lewis, a little bit more wild and throwing big looping punches, then Curtis has an opportunity to maybe catch Sergei on the feet. You never know. Curtis does have some sneaky good speed with his hands on the feet. That's what I've started to notice in some of his striking that he's been working on. So, yeah, I do agree. Like, the opposite spectrums there, like Sergei by decision, those odds are probably plus 1,000, if not maybe more. Curtis by knockout, honestly, could be a sneaky good bet if anybody's wanting to get real rowdy. But yeah, all in all, it's weird. More methods to win for Curtis, yet I'm kind of just like at the plus 145 for Sergei Noah right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. When the guy has 5 straight first round finishes, and say what you will about the style of fighter that he's taking on, to put out Tai Tuivasa, to put out Derek Lewis in under a minute.
Yeah,
that's not normal.
Wow.
That's just not normal.
No.
So Pavlovich is a guy I've been kind of slowly buying into. When he made his return after it was like a 2 or 3 year layoff he had. I believe his return was UFC London, right? The first London card. Didn't he fight Volkov?
He fought Shamil.
Well, yeah, Volkov was the main event. So yeah, when he came back against Shamil, Shamil is one of those guys who you kind of feel like he's being fed to the wolves a little bit there. Like, he's constantly been like a proving ground for a lot of upcoming heavyweights. So I kind of saw that one coming, but then after that, I mean, he's kind of surprised me. I think I bet on Derek Lewis. I don't think I bet on Tai Tuivasa, but it surprised me how quickly he disposed of him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of at a point now where I'm like, you know what? In this division, a guy that can really hit with not just the power, but the precision that Pavlovich offers, it's a dangerous recipe.
Yeah.
And with that, Dominic, I kind of want to ask you another question about this fight. And that is about that Jones-Stipe fight. Always getting brought up.
Has to.
We've been talking about it literally since episode 1, I'm pretty sure. And I know we don't do our numbers, but we're at like episode 285, not including special episodes and
Yeah.
other series and whatnot. This inability to get this fight together, right? It seemed like such a certainty just a couple months ago when Jones won against Gane that we might get it before the end of summer, which would kind of make the timelines, pretty good for the winner of this fight to at least be in a heavyweight title fight come the end of the year or early 2024. But now we're talking about MSG in November. And Dominic, I want to know if this inability to get this fight together between John Jones and Stipe Miocic, has that affected this fight at all?
I think it affects it in a positive way, actually, Noah.
Oh, okay.
I think because there was already pressure on these two guys. Like, you win, you're probably next after Stipe, right? But now we don't even know if that fight's going to happen. And if it does, it's pushed all the way back to November, which is 7 months from now. So these guys can go in, have a war, have time to recover, and be ready to take that spot from one of the two, John or Stipe, or come in as a backup and be ready. Sergei already has done that one time. It was for the John Jones fight against Gane.
Oh,
He
right,
was the
right.
backup. So, he's already kind of been in that position. But I strongly do believe that the winner of this is next in line. And this could be really crazy, but a big enough, emphatic enough finish maybe leads the UFC just go, you know what? Screw messing with Stipe. Screw all this contract talk. The winner of this, if it's crazy enough, you go fight John Jones next. It's not impossible.
Yeah, it's unclear kind of who in that super fight between Jones and Stipe is kind of the one holding up things. I mean, one day it kind of seems like it might be Stipe, and then it might be Jones. Maybe it's the UFC not wanting to do it in July. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what it could be. Maybe it's money, or you never know.
Yeah.
But let's say it is John Jones, right? Which I don't think. I mean, UFC or Dana's yet to really talk about him the way Dana's had him and Jones have had a rocky relationship. Like he wouldn't be afraid to share of
Right.
how he truly felt if he felt like Jones was sort of holding up this fight. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that John Jones was the reason this fight was being held up. I could see a world they did it when Ngannou was champion, where by August or September you have an interim heavyweight title fight between like a Stipe and the winner of this fight, or the winner of this fight and I don't know who else in this heavyweight division, maybe Aspinall and his comeback or something. Like, I could totally see something like that occurring, which I don't want it to. I'm not a big fan of the interim titles, but I see your point. However, when I typed this question out, I actually kind of took it the other way, where instead of looking at it for how it affects these guys' mindset going in, I was sort of looking at it from like a fan perspective and even the UFC, the people who make the decisions, their perspective, where I think it does affect the fight a little bit in a negative way. I don't think the fan interest is as high as it should be for this fight, first off.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think this fight's quite being like I said at the top, number one contender fight, but I don't think anybody else is saying that. Now, maybe it's just because it's the calm before the storm right now, and that talk might ramp up on Saturday, and depending on how the performances go, we'll go from there. But I really look at this fight as like a clear number one contender for whoever wins. Like, who else is there for these two to fight? You saw me struggling to think of, if Jones and Stipe aren't in the picture, who would the winner of this fight for like an interim title? Is it Tuivasa? Is it Aspinall, who hasn't fought in almost a year? I mean, I might be forgetting someone, but I mean, is it Alexander Volkov? Like, who is it, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, this should be viewed as a much bigger fight than it is. I mean, heavyweights run the show in all combat sports, and yet this fight's just not getting the love. And that worries me that the UFC, if the Jones-Stipe fight doesn't happen until November, who's to say that they don't try to turn one of these guys around and fight like a returning Aspinall or someone. I know Aspinall kind of has plans already for Tibura, I think.
Right.
But, who's to say that they don't turn one of these guys, the winner of this, around? And then that could really lead to pretty fucked up heavyweight title picture if Jones and Stipe ultimately both give deuces after the fight that they have hopefully at some point this year.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I'm at with it.
No, I like the way you took it. We kind of got to go with the mindset perspective and the business perspective, the fan perspective, the promotional marketing perspective, and it's all just a bunch of hodgepodge in this MMA world. That it all moves so quickly. I hope that again, we are recording this a little early on a Tuesday, so hopefully as the week carries on, there's a little more intrigue, a little more interest. Maybe media day, there's some good stuff that comes out with some of the interviews, and if none of that, hopefully at least come Sunday morning when we get in here to record, we've got a big takeaway and storyline to discuss for the recap.
Very true, Dominic. Now let's talk about the rest of hashtag UFC Vegas 71. Fine, I said it. We obviously, I guess we can talk about it now. We lose our co-main event.
Yeah.
But probably for the greater good, right?
I think so. Yes.
Ricky Simone and Song Yadong will now be headlining the April 29th card and a potentially 5-round main event. I'm assuming they'll make that 5 rounds, but it's not done yet. But because of that, that does thin out this card a little bit. That was a pretty big co-main for this spot. But Dominic, even if it might be hard to preview some of these because some of the storylines might not quite be there. But I do think there's a lot of fun action to be had throughout this card. A lot of fighters who typically bring it.
Yeah.
And I'll open the floor to you on kind of who you want to highlight first, a certain fight, a fighter, whatever way you want to take it.
No, I kind of really mess with the new co-main event, to be honest with you. Brad Tavares and Bruno Silva.
I didn't expect that direction. I didn't expect you to go with that one, but I'm here for it. I want to hear what you have to say.
First off, Brad Tavares, the dude is a good ass fighter. He's been around for so long, and no one ever talks about him. But he always has good performances, really good fights. If you haven't seen him fight Drickish, you need to go watch that right now as soon as you're done listening to the episode. And Bruno Silva's been a dog ever since he came into the UFC. The dude started with 3-0 with 3 straight knockouts, lost to the new champ, now former champ again, Alex Pereira, and he lost a fight with Gerald Mearchart in an absolute banger that he got subbed in. So he's always going for broke. Brad Tavares is a very intelligent fighter. He's never quite gotten to that next level, though. And I think that's what's held him back from a fan perspective and getting the respect he does deserve. He's always been that number 13, 14, 15, and never quite into that top 10. And he has like top 10 talent, I think, for this division and the way it is right now in the standings. But he's 35 now. It just gets harder and harder to work your way back up there. But this could be a good start. Take on Bruno Silva. I think regardless of who wins, it's a really, really interesting matchup.
Yeah, for just to give you the perspective here, Brad Tavares came into the UFC at 21 years old, Dominic. He was 5-0, and now he's 19-7 and 35. So a seasoned vet at this point who has essentially grown throughout his career in the UFC and went through a gauntlet. I mean, he fought Israel Adesanya back in the day. You already mentioned Dricus du Plessis. That was a war. Very reliable fighter. That's the thing. You know you're going to get a good fight with Tavares.
Very consistent.
Not sure if he's going to win. Not sure if he's going to lose, but he's consistently in that kind of back half of the top 15, and he's been so for a few years. Activity in the later portion of his career, I think, has thinned out a little bit. I'm not sure what the resume would tell you, but it feels like I just don't see him that much. I know he didn't fight Dricus that long ago, but before that, there was kind of a few years there where I felt like we weren't seeing a lot of Brad Tavares. However, we know he's kind of the consistency of this fight because, Dominic, this is a big prove-it fight for Bruno Silva. I like Bruno Silva a lot. I do. I really liked him. I thought the way he fought Alex Pereira was like quite, especially when you see where Alex Pereira went after that, knocked out Israel Adesanya, won the middleweight title. I thought like that loss has only looked better and better considering it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, Silva lost that fight. Nearly got finished in round 3. But for a fight that was really a bad matchup for Silva going in, I thought he fought pretty remarkably considering that. However, his follow-up performance against Gerald Mearchart Not sure what happened there. Like, GM3 is a beast. He's a
Yeah.
dog. Don't get me wrong. But Gerald Meerschaert was outstriking Bruno Silva in that
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
And when Bruno Silva is very much just a striker, and you're being outstruck by a well-known grappler who does not have the best boxing skills, it was just quite the weird. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
nothing like I had seen from Bruno Silva up to that point. Maybe just a bad night at the office, bad weight cut. Could be a lot of things. Maybe going in
Mhm.
sick, hurt, whatever.
Right.
But regardless, he's lost 2 in a row. I'd like to see, he really does need a win here, a bounce back win. And it's not easy
Mm.
because if he beats Brad Tavares, that's the best win of his career.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the wins he has in the UFC, Dom, only one of his 3 wins is still active, and that's Wellington Turman.
Yeah.
His other 2 wins, Andrew Sanchez, not in the UFC anymore, and Jordan Wright, not in the UFC anymore, I think. So even though all those guys had their moments, fun guys in the UFC, this is a big prove-it fight for him. I want to believe he can do it because I do think he's a fun guy. I like his style. But also, man, when you're going up against the consistency of Brad Tavares,
Mm-hmm.
if Bruno Silva is not even, if he's 85% of himself in this fight, he will lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I enjoy, and I'm kind of glad, like, not on purpose, but they get the new co-main event slot now, and I'm okay with that. You know.
I'm okay with it. I'll talk about the fight underneath it. Bobby
Mm,
Green taking on Jared Gordon.
I figured.
You know, we're big Bobby Green guys on this show. The king of the Apex at one point in time returns to his home, his throne.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should have mentioned we're back at the Apex, baby. While Bellator's having a weekend party, luau in
Yeah.
Hawaii, UFC back with minimal
Back at
fan
home.
attendance. You know, Dominic, do you remember when we way back in the day had our
Oh
hot takes
yeah.
episode
Oh
and
yeah.
we said we preferred fights with no fans?
Yeah.
Remember that? How
Yeah.
young and dumb we were.
Young and
It was fun for like a few months.
It was fun.
And
It
then I
was
realized
different.
I just got really tired of it once fans came back and you saw how great they could be.
Exactly. Yeah.
At the time, I think we both were just we were thinking of like the bad crowds that boo all the boo birds, you know.
The Kansas Cities. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, shit on all you want. Who Day up in this bitch. But no, Bobby Green always brings a great fight. But he's also got his back against the ropes right now, Dominic. He's lost 2 in a row. Now, one of those is Islam Makhachev, late replacement in that main event spot.
Yep.
But then Drew Dober, a fight that he was piecing up Drew Dober for the majority of that fight. Then Dober lands a monster shot, knocks him out cold. Dominic, that was the first time Bobby Green had been knocked out since Dustin Poirier did it back at UFC 199.
Golly. That's wow.
In the other corner, you got Jared Gordon. Not a guy that if I'm Bobby Green, I'm too worried about knocking me out. Jared Gordon, not really known for that kind of style. Much more of a, I don't really know how to describe Jared Gordon's style, to be honest with you. It's clinch heavy, it's drag you out, take you into the deeper rounds, keep things up close, not allow a lot of distance, pressure. You know, he's a good fighter, but I think athletically he is a little behind a lot of these guys, and that's why he has to kind of make it a rough, dirty fight a little bit.
Yeah.
And against a very athletic guy, Bobby Green, it'll be interesting to see how that chess match kind of plays out. Jared Gordon, of course, coming off what was one of the bigger robberies. Well, I mean, it even made us say the R word, Dom.
Yeah, it did. You're right.
We don't say it much. It was probably the biggest robbery of 2022. One of the biggest, dare I say? I'm not going to say all time. I can't do it. I can't.
That we've covered.
But yeah, that we've covered. I would say that. A lot of us thought they might run that fight right back. Even Patty on the hospital bed after his surgery called for it. And win or lose, that fight probably will happen after this. But Jared Gordon, you know, now because of that, he's lost 2 in a row. Or no, 2 of his last 3, excuse me.
Yeah.
And Bobby Green, a pretty big favorite. And when I first looked at his line, Dominic, I said, oh, this is a hammer on Jared Gordon. a hammer
Dude, I
fight on
thought
Jared Gordon.
same thing.
I said, and not because like Bobby Green could clearly knock out Jared Gordon or even win a decision because you see how
Yes.
good he goes late into fights.
Yes.
But I view this as such an even fight. I'm like
Yeah.
plus 210 on Jared Gordon. Like you got to take that for the value. But then I stopped myself.
Hmm.
And I started looking around. And I started seeing the
Digging.
rats. I started seeing the
Uh-oh.
rats. It's a
Mm,
rat line.
mm,
It's a rat
mm,
line. I
mm.
do not trust this line because once I thought about it more, I'm thinking of the styles, right?
Yeah.
And I go, where is Jared Gordon really better than Bobby Green? Is he better in the wrestling? Maybe.
But can he
But
get there?
is that really where is that really what he's gonna do here?
Yeah.
Bobby Green just has a lot of physical advantages, athletic advantages. He's got a power advantage. Jared Gordon been knocked out a few times or a couple
Yeah,
times at
true.
least. I always think of the Charles Oliveira knockout during his rise. That was a really
Mm.
good one. Is Jared Gordon really going to be able to slow down Bobby Green? Slow that pace
Can
down.
Jared do what he did to Patty?
And the
That was
problem is
my
Bobby
question.
Green doesn't really tire out, Dom. You saw what he
Right.
did to Fiziev over the course of 15 minutes. He got stronger as the fight went on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
sure, can Jared Gordon stop him, slow him down in round one? Maybe. But he's going to have to do it for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody who wants to put money on Jared Gordon because the value in theory is there.
Yeah.
But I might be staying away from this fight completely, Dom, because I think this might be a rat line. I think this is the line that is just too good to be true.
Yeah, and a fight for Bobby where he gets knocked out by Drew Dober, he's coming back here, but doesn't have to necessarily worry about that threat again. Back to back, I think it's going to free him up to be more loose on the feet like he likes to be. I just like you, I jumped at that line. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And then sitting here, I'm looking at the resumes as we're talking, and I'm kind of pulling myself back a little bit. Maybe I dabble with a half unit. I don't know, but I I kind of almost even like inside the distance for this one. I know it seems like
you're getting
it,
freaky.
it seems like a fight where dude, it's going the distance. Don't even touch it. But I don't know, man. A Bobby Green coming off of a knockout. We haven't had to see him do that in a while. Jared's probably pissed that he got robbed against Patty. I even bet on him and Patty to be inside the distance and remember being sick to my stomach that it went the distance. So I don't know. I want to bet this fight. I just don't know how. I'm gonna try and figure that out.
In my opinion, when you said that and you're like inside the distance, I feel like I would rather take like a Bobby Green by KO TKO. Not sure what that'll be. I'm not very good at kind of predicting some of these
The
prop
method.
lines.
Yeah.
I would like to think it'd be plus money, but it's probably going to be his most likely chance of winning. So it probably won't be as good at taking him by decision or obviously submission. Jared Gordon, I just don't really see him finishing this fight. The last time he finished the fight, I'm going to look here on his resume, Dom. He has not won in a winning effort. He has not finished the fight since 2017.
Wow.
That was against Michel Quinones.
Okay.
That was his
All
UFC
good to
debut, by
know.
the way. So
Wow.
since then, he's actually been finished in every loss besides the Patty Pimblett one.
Yeah.
But all of his wins have been decisions. That's why Bobby Green by KO TKO could be the move here.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it. Noah.
Yeah, go ahead. I wanted to hear what you have to say next.
Really, there wasn't even a particular fight, but I think my point I was going to say is that while there's not another fight with the storylines and the breakdown, I think for us on here, there are fighters I'm excited to see on this card.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to put it. I'm excited to see Brady Hiestand. Muhammad Usman's back.
Yep.
His first fight since winning the Ultimate Fighter last August. He just went ghost. We ain't seen him since August, but now he's back. Ricky Glenn's fighting. Jeremiah Wells is fighting Matthew Simmelsberger. I think that's a low-key banger that nobody's going to really talk about.
Absolutely banger.
So, yeah, I mean, if there's a fight or anything specific you want to hit on, go ahead. But those are just a couple names that I'm intrigued and keeping my eye on. Oh, and quickly, you're going to love this. KR Rosa, number 9 at bantamweight. Norma Dumont, number 13 at bantamweight. They're doing it at featherweight. Make it make sense, baby.
Hey, is this a number 1 contender fight? The people are asking.
So I've heard.
I will mention, yes, Jeremiah Wells, Matthew Semmelsberger, Semi the Jedi. That should be an awesome fight. I like Jeremiah Wells a lot, by the way.
That's a straight up pick 'em, by the way, too. Minus 110.
Semmelsberger's really good, but Jeremiah Wells, 3 wins in the UFC, 3 finishes, undefeated in the UFC. He's got great wrestling, but he's got big power
Yep.
too, and good submissions. I like him a lot. I might have to dabble a little bit. Brady Highstand going up against Donna Badgerel. I always mess up his name. I'm sure
That's a
that's
tough
not
one.
right.
Yeah.
But those are 2 guys that I think will bring a really fun fight there. And you mentioned a few of the other ones. I will say Francis Marshall coming off a very
Yes, thank
exciting
you. Yeah.
finish win on his debut. He was on Anik and Florian's podcast this week, so that's kind of what reminded me that he's back here. I'm excited to see what he can do in his sophomore effort in the UFC. And actually, I'm going to give a little shout out to that women's strawweight fight on the main card. And that's because Yasmin Lucindo, Dom, you may not remember the name right off the top of your head, but she was in that absolute war on the Vera versus Cruz card. She did lose that fight via decision, but Dana White said afterwards he felt like both of the girls in that fight were the future of strawweight. So Yasmin Lucindo, not going to be a name a lot of people are going to be thinking of going in. She's going up against the runner-up from what was it, last season of the Ultimate Fighter? Yeah.
29,
Brogan Walker,
Yeah.
who did not have a great showing against Juliana Miller.
Yep.
Then you saw what Juliana Miller kind of did after that. So I could see Lucindo kind of running through Brogan Walker here, but Brogan Walker's fought tough competition before that too.
You're right.
Let's not forget she had losses in Invicta to like Aaron Blanchfield. I remember she has a win over, I'm going to blank.
Maverick.
Miranda Maverick. Thank you.
Yep.
I believe there's another loss in there that's actually against a pretty good opponent. But by all means, Dominic, I think that could be Yasmin Lucindo. I'm looking out for her on here. I think a lot of even like I even though I kind of was I've not had the best relationship with this fighter, but Priscilla Cachoeira, she's fighting Karine Silva, and Cachoeira does bring a pretty sloppy, fun fight pretty much every time she's in there. Do I like when she like gouges the fighter she's fighting's eyes, or when she wins a robbery that I bet on? No. But she does bring a fun fight. So I think there's a lot of fun action on here.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. That's the best way to describe this card. The undercard per se.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Bellator Luau Extravaganza.
What a name. What a title.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you saw that on the sheet today, were you a bit taken aback, Dom? Did you have to catch your breath?
I think I never knew how luau was spelled until today, current time. So it's actually, I learned something new today, and that always feels good.
Thank you to Spell Check for that one. But we are going to kind of combine both Bellator 294 and 295 here, seeing as they are doing a doubleheader this weekend in Honolulu, Dom. They even asked Dana after Max fought last weekend, when are you guys going to go to Hawaii? He said, Hawaii don't want us there. Hawaii, we can't get to Hawaii. Meanwhile, the B promotion is doing back-to-back cards.
Back-to-back years. They've done it too.
Yeah. So Honolulu, Hawaii is where we will be. Bellator 294 happening Friday night, and then Saturday night, Bellator 295. The Friday card, your main event, will be a rematch for the women's flyweight title. Liz Carmouche taking on DeAnna Bennett. And then Saturday, the big one.
Yes.
Bantamweight interim title on the line, but more importantly, the Bantamweight Grand Prix final between Raufeon Stots and Patchy Mix goes down. So, Dominic, I know that fight's going to take the majority of the discussion here, but I'm just going to kind of open it up to you. We can obviously focus on that fight, but I think Carmouche deserves a little love too, and against DeAnna Bennett. But kind of what are the X factors for this fight? What are you hoping to see out of each fight here? Like, is there anything you're on the lookout for in terms of what the incoming champions might offer, or what even the challengers could offer to maybe take the strap?
I want to see if this reign of terror for Liz Carmouche can continue on, man. She's been so good since coming to Bellator, and she proved that title-winning performance against Juliana Velasquez was no fluke when she submitted her last year in December, man, and she's got a title defense now. She already has a win over DeAnna Bennett. That was her Bellator debut and submitted her in the 3rd round. So for Liz, continuing to prove that she has plenty of gas left in the tank. What is she now? 39 years old, and she's arguably looking some of the best she's ever looked in her career. DeAnna Bennett looking to get revenge and win a title at the same time. She's won 3 straight fights. Believe they're all by decision, but still has been winning fights. I believe 2 of those 3 were against the same fighter and Justine Kish.
Kish.
Yeah, but it is what it is. She's earned this, and now I just want to see if she can get revenge. I think Liz, I just lean with so heavily, and honestly, can Liz keep finishing people? Every win but one in Bellator, she has won by finish. I'm telling you, man, like I've already said, she just looks so good right now, and it's so good as a fan and someone that covers the sport to see her having this success when she was always good in the UFC, but was never good enough to win the big one, Noah.
Well, she's a pioneer, Dom. She was in the inaugural UFC women's MMA bout against Ronda Rousey. Even had Ronda's back in that fight. So people forget. She might have, in another world, she derailed the hype train before it even got going.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, this is clearly Liz Carmouche's fight to lose, right? She's already got the win over DeAnna Bennett. You talk about the age of Carmouche. Well, DeAnna Bennett's 38 years old. It's not
okay.
This is not a young gal fight here. These are 2 veterans who have fought a lot of good competition. I was looking at DeAnna Bennett's resume real quick, and she even had a loss to Miranda Maverick in Invicta before Liz in Bellator, and even has a win over Miranda Maverick, actually. So this girl and DeAnna Bennett is she just loves fighting the same girl twice, apparently, because she's done it a few times. But no, in all honesty, this feels like it's set up to kind of give Liz Carmouche a little bit of, of a reign here, as they try to build up maybe perhaps someone else who wins one of the fights on one of these cards to be the next challenger, perhaps a bigger fight to go from there. But in all honesty, Raufeon Stots and Patchy mix is the fight, Dominic. I'm so excited for this one. Raufeon Stots is not just one of the, maybe even the best bantamweight in Bellator, Dominic. He's kind of quickly rising up through the ranks if you want to include even a talent-stacked UFC bantamweight division.
Yeah.
I've been wrong about these calls before. I shouldn't say wrong. I've been overzealous on some of these calls before. I kind of, AJ McKee, we talked about being like a top 5 featherweight at one time in all of MMA, and maybe he is, but maybe it was just a bit too soon. But Raufeon Stots seems like a guy who's really just coming into his own at the right time in this Grand Prix. He's looked fantastic. He had that really heated bout in the semifinals against Danny Sabatello that he won with ease, even though it was a split decision. But Patchy Mix in the other corner is a guy I've been high on for a long time. He's 29 years old. He is a nightmare matchup in terms of size at bantamweight. He is 5'11", Dominic, fighting at 135 pounds. And that cut's not easy for him. And he uses those limbs, though. He got 12 wins via submission out of his 17 total. Only 1 loss in his entire MMA career, and that came in his Bellator debut against Juan Archuleta, who's a former bantamweight champion. Of course, he fought in Ryzen. Or sorry, that wasn't his Bellator debut.
He did that split. Yeah.
But ultimately, this fight, a lot at stake here because obviously you have a pretty big fight coming up this summer. Sergio Pettis, Patricio Pitbull. The winners of those 2 fights will meet. And Raufeon Stots feels like a guy he's got the personality, he's got the style. He feels like a guy who could really be a pillar to build the next generation of Bellator athletes on. But Patchy Mix, I don't think, is far from it. Doesn't quite have the mic skills or the personality that shows through, but the fight style's fun. He gets a lot of finishes, and he's just a nightmare matchup for a lot of these guys. So I think this fight's going to be a lot of fun. Don't really know what to expect, to be honest, but I don't think it'll be boring.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And we can't forget this. Patchy Mix is one half of the scariest power couple in MMA with the girlfriend Tatiana Suarez. Those are two people you don't want to fuck with when it comes to
I did not.
grappling.
I must have
so,
forgot that they were together.
so that's the ultimate power couple right now in this sport. And this is I think this might be the most high level fight Bellator could have right now, Noah. These two guys, they're just surging right now in their primes, beating everyone that stands in their way. Patchy submitted Magomedov. Not a lot of people saw that coming. Not a lot of people saw him winning, let alone finishing Magomed.
Yeah.
And Stots, man, say what you want about some of his fights. Like, yeah, he goes the distance and whatnot, but he's a really technical, intelligent fighter. And we have two of those here clashing with one another. But I'm with you. I don't think this will be boring. I think if you like high level MMA, then you are going to love this fight. I think we're in for a treat. One of the biggest fights Bellator is going to have in 2023, and they get a massive opportunity to win $1 million. Someone's going to stay or become the new interim champ, and you're guaranteed a massive fight at the end of the year, beginning of next year against Sergio or Pitbull. Dude, there's so much riding on this fight, and that's what I think makes it that much bigger of a deal.
I think it's one of the highest level fights you'll see in Bellator all year. So I would
Yes.
suggest if you're a fan of MMA who maybe usually just watches the UFC, doesn't watch a lot of Bellator, I would go out of your way to at least watch 295 on Saturday. Now, there's a lot of stuff competing against it Saturday. Of course, you're going to have Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia if you're wanting to watch that. But I think it's going to be worth your time. You just don't get a lot of fights that have this level of talent in
Yes.
Bellator. Bellator has a lot of talent, but as we'll kind of talk about, and Dominic has been critical of in the past, sometimes they don't get matched up against one another.
Yeah.
Is that a good segue, Dom?
I think that's a perfect segue for the rest,
Yeah.
isn't it? No.
Yeah. Let's talk about the rest of Bellator 294 and 295. Do you want to start with 294 since you might?
Yeah,
wanna
let's go
talk
day
about
by
it?
day here. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm got you on the leash, Dom. You got the dog collar on.
Yeah. Noah did say the other day I got that dog in me. Or no, he said I'm a bad man. I might have said that to myself when I hit that plus 175 on Raw Dog Royval.
Yeah,
Anyways, I still went negative, so did. But anyway, Danny Sabatello, one of the biggest personalities in the sport and definitely one of the biggest personalities in Bellator right now. Number 5, coming off of a loss to Raufeon Stots. You think he's going to have a nice bounce back fight, going to fight another top 5, top 10. Nope, we're going to fight somebody that ain't even close to the damn rankings. And Marcos Bruno. Now he is 15-2. Noah brought me down a little bit when I had my rant a month or so ago, whenever that was. We've got a good talent here. He's 1-0 in Bellator. He beat Josh Hill. He was in LFA. He's a good fighter, okay? But why, for Danny's sake, why are you feeding him someone outside of the top 15 just to make him look good? And for Marco's sake, why? Why are you giving him someone in the top 5 in his second Bellator fight? Like, I get it. If he wins, that's incredible. If Danny wins, honestly, there's nothing really to lose for Bruno in this situation and so much to gain for Danny. There's a lot to lose and not really much to gain, Noah, in this fight.
It reminds me, and Bellator does this for sure. It reminds me a little bit of boxing in a lot of the matchmaking that goes on over there. I understand your frustration with it because if you're not someone who is either a fan of boxing or that accustomed to like seeing how the matchmaking goes, a lot of times when a boxer loses a guy that's got a lot of value, like I would argue Danny Sabatello has the potential to do. You know, if he's a boxer, right, he's gonna go back and try to get that win back against someone who's a more manageable fight for him. Wins one, maybe two that are sort of gimmies, and then you go back to fighting one of the top guys. And I understand, again, this is MMA, right? You're not supposed to have the UFC have really built themselves on not giving a lot of gimme fights. You know, it's where the best typically fight the best. But in this case, you know, Marcus Bruno, he should be a pretty big underdog, but I don't think it's like, I don't know how to say this. Like, he could surprise here for sure. Like,
He could.
He's got the resume of a guy who has some untapped potential. But is it in his best interest for being 15 and what was it, 2 or 15-1?
Yep, 25 years old.
25 years old. Is it really in Bellator's best interest to give a guy like him
Right.
to Danny Sabatello as his second fight
Yeah.
when you're still trying to build him up with your audience? I don't know. He feels like a guy who, with some seasoning and some time, he could be a guy
Exactly.
that Dominic doesn't go, who? To?
Part of the future, right?
Yeah. But instead, he's being forced into a pretty tough matchup in his second outing. But what a win it would be if he could get it. And I get what you're saying about there's not much to gain for Sabatello, but it's clearly just to hold ground here as
Yeah.
he's got the ability on the microphone to sell any fight. So a lot of guys, and he kind of builds himself as being an asshole. So a lot of these guys that are fighting in the title picture are going to want a piece of him. So it's kind of like the Colby Covington thing where Colby's been able to get, he's about to get his third title fight. And a lot of it's because a lot of these guys who become champion just hate his guts and are like, please let me beat his ass. So
Yeah.
because of that, I understand what Bellator's doing. I also understand I don't know how a lot of people are feeling. I don't think a lot of people, you just don't hear a ton of talk about Bellator till it gets here.
Yeah.
I imagine there's going to be a lot of people feeling like you, Dominic, once they realize that this fight's actually happening.
I would imagine so. And Noah, this card, not as good as the Saturday card, but I wanted to point out one lady, Sarah McMahon, is now in Bellator, and she's fighting at featherweight, 42 years old. She last fought in March in Columbus, as a matter of fact, and beat Carol Rosa, who is fighting this weekend as well for the UFC. Didn't know she had become a free agent. Didn't know she had signed with Bellator. It's like the Christoph Jocko thing with the PFL. But she's fighting Arlene Blenko, a ranked fighter in the featherweight division.
Well, not to mention, Dominic, this is Arlene Blenko was the last woman to fight Chris Cyborg for her titles. So this is, that's a pretty big fight for Sarah McMahon coming in here. Dare I say, it's an interesting fight because I almost wonder if Bellator's like kind of, I don't know how Bellator's viewing this fight. I don't know how I view this fight. How much does Sarah McMahon really have left,
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she comes in and wins. She's probably could get a title fight next. I don't know what Chris Cyborg's doing. Again, we talked about that on Monday's show. But a seasoned veteran like this at 42, 43, come in, beat a ranked fighter, don't have a ton of time to work with, bam, you get a title opportunity, and it would just be Kat Zingano getting passed up again. You know what? Maybe we get Sarah McMahon and Kat Zingano to be together and they'll do like an interim fight or a vacant title fight. That would be maybe a perfect world, depending on what Chris is doing. But I just wanted to give a shout out there because I didn't know she was in Bellator. And I think it could be a good spot for her to maybe get a couple more wins before she hangs up the gloves, Noah.
Yeah, okay. I like the optimism there. Co-main event, Timothy Johnson taking on Saeed Salma in the heavyweight division. Tim Johnson, he's been there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna say on a resurgence, but he's had a couple losses. But I like Big Tim, man. He's been a guy he's been a guy just kind of hanging around for years, man. And all the respect to him. Also, how about this name to open your card? Sharaf Davlatmuradov.
Doesn't roll off the tongue that easy.
And Tyrell Fortune also, who's coming off that loss from Chicago that we were at. So
very true. Very true.
Not sure if you knew this, by the way. I didn't put it on a fight announcements when it came out. Who's our boy that beat Tyrell Fortune?
Daniel James.
Yeah, Daniel James got announced for a fight, and it's not against like anybody.
You got to be shitting me. They just had him and Bader talking to each other. Here we go again. No, I'm not going to do it. Bellator's having a big weekend. It's a luau. I'm not going to get all mad.
But guess what card it's happening on?
Probably the Chicago card.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
fair.
So I think they're just trying to put him in Chicago. They gave him a kind of a fight that he should win. And
if he loses, I will cry. I will cry.
We've been kind of in his corner, man. When I saw I only saw that it was announced from I think it was on Sherdog, it showed up in the headline. I was like, dude. What? Said Daniel James added to the Chicago card. I'm like, we having another title fight on that card? And I looked, I was like,
who?
Oh. I was like, see, I was kind of the guy that was defending that matchmaking, but when you literally had him and Bader,
it was there.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, it is
Uh,
what it is. Let's talk about Saturday, Dom. Let's keep
let's
the
do that.
party. Let's keep the vibes high, the party going.
Yeah, yeah.
On this card, you got Alima Malay McFarland returning to Hawaii, of course, where she's from, taking on Kana Watanabe.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
this fight feels like a number one contender bout in a lot of ways. Like, especially if Alima Malay gets a win here, she's the inaugural flyweight champion. She's probably one of the more recognizable names in all of Bellator women's divisions. And even though she had that kind of rough fight, wasn't that against Justine Kish where she
Yes.
lost?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was kind of a rough fight for her. And then Justine Kish was ranked like 4 spots behind her in the rankings.
Yeah,
I don't
makes
know.
sense. Yeah.
Um, but Kana Watanabe does have that under 1 minute loss to Liz Carmouche as she was kind of rising up to her ending up being title winning performance. But now that loss looks a little bit better when you see what Carmouche has been able to do. And then Watanabe went and fought another former title challenger, Denise Keelholtz. Got a
Mm-hmm.
submission in the second round. That was such a thrilling win. I remember that was my big Bellator parlay that I like thrown together at the last second. You remember that shit, Dom, when I fucking nailed that shit back
I
in May
do remember.
2022?
Yeah.
That shit was like the biggest hit of my life, and it didn't even count for the motherfucking bet slip because I didn't even put it on there. Story of my life. But
Yeah.
this fight, it's co-main event. I think there's a good chance the winner fights Liz Carmouche next. There's just not a whole lot going on at women's flyweight in Bellator right now, so would kind of make sense.
Yeah, and I lean heavily on Kana Watanabe. Like at minus 135, I'm probably going to be playing that. Depending on where I can get the best odds, obviously. Do your line shopping out there, kids. But I just really like her in this. And I think not only her, being that she can finish people, she's 3-1 in Bellator, only lost to Liz, but Alima Lay, even in her win against Bruno Ellen, who was a debutante at the time, didn't necessarily come easy. We've had this discussion, is her best days behind her, and I think that they are. It would be a big win for her here in front of her, home state of Hawaii and their crowd. But man, I can't help but think the best days are past, and Kana right now in that cage is the better fighter in this current day. So I'm leaning honestly kind of heavy with Watanabe, and it could bite me, but I just really like what I've seen from her and not what I've seen from McFarland as of late.
Yeah, and I will just say before I let you take another one of these fights on the main card, it's kind of a deep card actually for Bellator.
This
Like
one
some
is,
recognizable
yeah.
names as you go down prelims. Mads Burnell taking on Justin Gonzalez in the prelim
Mm-hmm.
headliner. Yancey Medeiros on the prelims, and Kai Kamaka the third. All our
Yes.
boys are here, man. We having a big old luau.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
Dominic, do you want to talk about Aaron Pico, James Gonzalez?
Oh, so I have to do this conversation again because the number 3 ranked featherweight is fighting. So, okay, I got a little confused because on DK, it had James Gonzalez. On Sherdog and on Bellator's own website, it's Otto Rodriguez. Can anybody confirm who Aaron Pico is actually fighting?
Otto Rodriguez was the original matchup. I'm not sure if that's I remember that because we talked about it, but I
That's what I
don't
thought.
know. I don't know if he fell off the card and James Gonzalez is stepping in. I'm gonna
Okay.
guess that's what happened.
So, regardless of which one of these two guys Aaron Pico's fighting, it still don't make no damn sense.
Isn't that such a Bellator move, Dom, that they didn't even update the goddamn website?
I always go with where can I, like, if two say one thing and one says the other, I'm gonna go with the majority, right? So I was like, well, he must be fighting Otto Rodriguez. It may be James Gonzalez. Either way, Aaron Pico's a minus 720, as he should be. He's the biggest favorite of the entire weekend for mixed martial arts. Another fight that doesn't make any sense. He's coming off of a loss to Jeremy Kennedy where he blew out his shoulder. It's a fight that I would have liked to have seen again, or just Aaron fighting someone in the rankings at featherweight because he's right there on the precipice of fighting for a title. And I know that Noah wants to see Aaron Pico fight for a title. And, listen, he could win this weekend, not have to fight another ranked fighter and get that. I just wish he was fighting. I mean, look, Mads Burnell and who's he fighting? Justin are fighting each other. That's number 6 versus number 7 in this division. And then you have Aaron fighting someone that's unranked. Little stinky.
A little stinky poopy, right? Otto Rodriguez, by the way, Dominic, you just got to check Tapology. It shows that it's canceled on there. So
Okay.
it shows that it's canceled. But no, I get it. That's a
James
little
Gonzalez it
frustrating.
is.
Bellator's website haven't not updated. That's such a Bellator move. Shout out to them. But how about the opener of this main card, Dominic?
Let's
Kyoji
talk about this.
Horiguchi taking on Ray Borg. And some of you'd be like, okay, that's a decent fight. You know, Horiguchi's a good fighter. Ray Borg fought for the flyweight title in the UFC. Think about that word real quick. Flyweight. A division that does not exist in Bellator until now.
True.
As we will be having a flyweight fight between Horiguchi and Ray Borg, and I will admit I am pretty confused by what's going on here because there has been no formal announcement of a flyweight division. You have two fighters that struggle to make flyweight.
Yeah.
Which told me when this fight was announced that this would potentially be for a flyweight title because I wasn't quite sure why either guy would be trying to force himself to flyweight anymore.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of it, Dom. I assume a flyweight title is coming here soon, but if not, I guess it's a fun one-off. But I hope that I hope there's more to come of this because we advocates for the flyweight division over here. And Horiguchi fought Demetrius Johnson back in the day. Guess who else fought Demetrius Johnson? Ray Borg. So I think this fight should be fun. Horiguchi was his run in Bellator has been kind of interesting, right? Because I think he was kind of one of the favorites to win the entire Grand Prix, but he was coming off of losing to Sergio Pettis in a fight he was pretty handedly winning for 4 of the 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Then he loses early in the Grand Prix. So now it's a little up in the air, you know, with Horiguchi, I guess. He's kind of in limbo right now. I still think he's one of the best talents in the Bellator bantamweight division. And going down to flyweight, I think he should win this fight against Ray Borg, but Ray Borg's good. The problem for him is just like how depleted is he going to be from inevitably
The cut.
missing this weight that he's probably about to do. So.
Oh no, Noah, you're already predicting the future.
I'm calling it, Dominic. We've had this too many times where we kind of hint at it and then it happens. So,
oh man,
what
I really
happened with
hope
Alex
not.
Perez. Alex Perez, it's happening all over again.
I will say though, I hope this is the start of a men's flyweight division in Bellator. I don't know why they didn't. You really haven't even heard anybody acknowledge that this fight is happening at flyweight. Like, I think people might just know, okay, Ray Borg's in Bellator now. He's fighting Horiguchi. And then all of a sudden, Saturday night's going to roll around. It's going to say flyweight. People are going to be like, what?
Well, maybe everybody's just assuming this is going to be at a catch weight, not a flyweight, you know?
Oh, yeah, it could be 130.
I'm sorry, Ray. I'm sorry, Ray. I'm being so disrespectful.
I could be, honestly, like the fight, assuming they get there Saturday, regardless of what weight they may come in at, it actually could be a good fight. Horiguchi's minus 230, and I don't hate that. He should be the favorite, but it could be a bit enticing stylistically the way that they could clash. Ray Borg is a good fighter, very good grappling. Horiguchi kind of just good everywhere, not necessarily one predominant skill set that I can pinpoint, and that makes it a little bit fun. And again, hopefully they make weight and flyweight gets a division in Bellator. It'd be perfect storm there, Noah. That's what that would be.
You know what I'm ready to do, Dom?
What's that?
I'm ready to end this party and talk about some fight announcements.
We shall.
Nah, fuck it. Let's keep the party going. But if we are doing the fight announcements, Dom.
Okay.
So we already talked about Ricky Simone's song Yadong.
True.
Really, Dominic, there's just a lot of shuffling of the deck, I guess we'll call it here. You got that fight being moved to the April 29th main event. Then Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. This happened between the time we recorded on Sunday and released the episode on Monday, which we just love when that happens.
Yeah.
Has been moved to the co-main spot June 10th, UFC 289. Quite a boost for that card. But then, Dominic, another thing here. We have another co-main spot open due to Oliveira Dariush falling out of 288. That co-main spot's open.
Yes.
And Dana hinted at that Gilbert Burns has been just begging for a fight, been blowing up his phone. So a lot of people suspected this might be the time to do Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad. And those people who had that suspicions would be right, except it looks like we're having some issues getting this fight together. I can't even really recap all these tweets because it's gotten real scattered. They're kind of Bilal's quote tweeting Gilbert. Gilbert's not really directly tweeting at Belal.
Yeah.
But the issue seems to be, Dominic, that Belal does not seem to be able or wanting to make 170 pounds in what,
That
2,
quick.
3 weeks.
Yeah. It's literally 2.5
And Gilbert
weeks away.
Burns is not taking that as a good enough excuse. It sounds like that's the issue. Is one guy wants to keep that fight at 170 pounds. Another guy might want, I don't know if he wants to do 175, 180, 185, but
Yeah.
that seems to be the issue, to the point, Dominic, where Gilbert Burns decided to go to other, start reaching out to other divisions for a potential guy to go up against on that card. And that led us to the diamond, Dustin Poirier. Gilbert tweeted, "All due respect to Dustin Poirier, I know you are a dog. May 6th, I supposed to fight Belal for number 1 contender. I just think me and you will be an amazing fight. Nothing but respect." Dustin Poirier, Dominic, you might be wondering, what did he have to say about this? How does he fit into this conversation? He said, "Respect, Gilbert. I can make 170, no problem. I'm not really in fight shape, but money talks."
Mm-hmm.
So I suspect there's a good chance between the time we're talking about this on Tuesday and even though we're releasing this episode on Thursday, this might just already be
Yeah.
announced. And if so, sorry about it. But
Talk about it
it'll be a
Monday.
little time machine for you guys
Yeah.
to see what we thought 2 days before it happened. So, Dominic, do you think inevitably it ends up being Burns Muhammad, or is there a chance, due to Dustin Poirier not having a fight, could he really be the one to step in and fight Gilbert Burns in that co-main spot?
Am I allowed to pick none? I don't think we're getting a new fight. I don't think we're
really?
getting. Yeah, I don't think we're getting a new fight.
Interesting.
I think the co-main on that card is going to be Andrade and Yan Xiaonan. This is 2.5 weeks away. Belal is a guy that feels like he's earned a title fight. I don't see him coming off the couch to fight a very, very dangerous and red hot Gilbert Burns. And Dustin, yeah, that would be dope. That'd be a sick fight. Him and Gilbert Burns, 170 pounds. Dustin doesn't have to cut a lot of weight.
Yeah,
but, he said money talks. It's going to have to be a shit ton of money talking, I believe, to get him to turn around. It'd be sick, guys. And maybe, again, time machine. Maybe there'll be something announced by the time this is out on Thursday morning. I'm going with none. I don't think Gilbert's on this card. I don't think Belal's on this card. And I don't think Dustin Poirier is on this card. No new co-main event for 288.
Dominic, this is breaking my heart. You are usually are usually optimistic to the point where it frustrates me. And you're giving up? You're giving up?
Yeah. What do you got? Are you leaning away then? Which way?
I'm conflicted, to be honest with you, because now that you threw that at me, it's like, man, yeah, I guess 2.5 weeks is going to
a lot of logistics here.
I don't feel the Dustin one was exciting. Like I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I want to see Dustin fight, right? I don't. I'm not sure how much money it would take for him to do it, but I imagine it's going to be quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I think the UFC would probably rather, even at a catchweight, do Gilbert and Belal. And I know some people might be like, well, wait a minute, Dustin's a bigger star than Belal. That helps sell the card and whatnot. True, but don't you think that they want to kind of they need to get this contendership hierarchy figured out?
Yeah.
So I feel like, and plus you can probably get Belal and Gilbert a little bit cheaper than you can get a guy like Dustin Poirier. So I think if there is going to be a new co-main, you do see it be those two, and it will be at a catchweight. Maybe they have to sweeten the pot to Gilbert to kind of make it work. I don't know. You're kind of making me feel like how you're feeling now. I'm going to put it like this. I think there is a 45% chance there's no new co-main.
Okay.
Yeah. Let just walk with me.
Okay.
45, or wait a minute. I feel like I'm not doing the math right here. Yeah, 45% chance no new co-main. I'm going to go with another 45% chance that it is Belal and Gilbert. and that'll leave 10% for Gilbert and Dustin.
Damn. So all in all, though, 55%, you think something's happening. That's all right. I like the confidence.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't think my math really checked out how I'm really feeling, but I think it's interesting though. I like the
yeah.
call out of Dustin. I do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great matchup for Dustin, but I think it'd be a big fight, and it's
Isn't
just
that
not a lot of
crazy if
time to build
Gilbert,
to it.
like, if Gilbert does fight, he just fought. Like, the dude is looking to be the fighter of the year in 2023.
Well,
Fought in January. Just fought a couple
he's
weeks ago.
Dominic.
You know.
He's looking to win that Joey. More importantly,
Yes, that very true. He's in there right now already, I'd say.
yeah,
Is the
I
way
would
it's
agree.
looking.
Yeah, and I think he really wants to earn that title fight, and
Yeah.
good on him. I
He's
respect it. I really do.
he's honestly having more people talking about him right now than anybody else. More people talking about him than Kamaru, than Leon, than Colby. He's the biggest talking point at welterweight
That's
right
true.
now, Gilbert Burns. So.
Very good point. So with that, Dominic, there's only one way we end the show around here, and that's with the little segment we like to call closing statements. The point of the show where me and Dominic can talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. Dominic, me and you both had nothing on Sunday. What do you have today?
You briefly, in passing, talked about shuffling the deck, and it made me think of how I've never been good at shuffling cards in my life. Poker cards, regular shuffling, doing that fancy bridge thing where they go,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been able to do none of that. I can hardly shuffle the cards in the Clue board game, with the weapons in the room and the people. I'm just putting them on the table and shuffling them all like this. So, Noah, I bet I look at you and I've seen in my head you sitting at a poker table, throwing the dice, shades on, cigar in your mouth, the poker face. I see it. Can you shuffle a deck of cards? And if you can, do you believe in your ability to a high pedigree?
Well, let me just say Clue is the best board game of all time. Don't
This
at
is
me.
facts. Yes, this is facts. Yeah.
What's funny, Dominic, is I am probably worse than you at shuffling cards.
Perfect. Love
it. Big card game guy. My biggest growing up, my mom's side of the family, our biggest family fun time, whatever you want to call it, activity was euchre. If any of you know, you know, euchre is the shit. 4-person euchre. And then when I went to college, Dominic, I met a bunch of people there who also played euchre, and I fucking nerded out because I love euchre. The thing is, I never knew how to shuffle cards, and you have to pass the deck around each hand, and someone has to, shuffle. The next person shuffles. But I used it to my advantage, Dominic.
Oh,
I am a very good euchre player.
Mm.
But when you hand me, I always try to deal first.
Yeah.
Because when I'm playing against people who aren't very familiar with my game, they weren't familiar with my game,
Mm-hmm.
They see me start sitting over there fucking dropping cards.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
I got 2 halves and I'm just kind of sticking them together,
Yeah.
They go, they're like, what the hell is this? And then that's when while they're so confused, that's when I'm taking that blade and I'm putting it behind their back and I'm stabbing them in the fucking back with it. Because I'm a fucking savage at euchre.
You're a hustler.
I'm a hustler. I am.
You are Josh from the billiards. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how that's what you go to when that whole concept is based off a movie from the late 60s, early 70s called The Hustler with Paul Newman. And then there was a sequel made 15 years later with Tom Cruise in it called The Color of Money. So there you go. There's your fun fact for today.
Wow,
I love how you referenced the Drake and Josh episode about it. But that makes sense. So that's what I thought of too at first. Yeah, I am a hustler. I'm fucking proud of it.
But now your secret's out.
My name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Slee. We are but just 2 of the below average Joes, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.